be switched to silent mode. Let's stand for the national anthem. After the national anthem, we will remain standing as we call on Pastor Jeremy Thomas to deliver a word of prayer.
Good afternoon to everyone. All protocols adopted. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your grace, your mercy, and your love that you have bestowed upon us this day. Father, this is the day that you have made, God, and without us having any control of it, we're going to rejoice and we're going to be glad. So, Heavenly Father, in this moment, we thank you for the lives of everyone that's present, for the purpose of which we are gathered here today. Lord, we are thankful and grateful for your added mercies to our government, our people, and our nation, in spite of the various challenges that our country and this entire world face. Father, let this day represent a new season, a new day, a clear direction from the people that you have elected and selected to lead us in such a time as this. Father, we ask you to continue to saturate their minds, their meetings, their gatherings with your love, your wisdom, and your understanding in knowing what is your will for our country and for our people. Lord, we pray that you continue to give strength in the times of weakness, love when there is hate, forgiveness where there is malice, and peace where there is confusion. So, Father, on this day, you promise that you will never leave us and you won't forsake us. Lord, even in that moment as well, God, you also promise that you will send your angels to take charge. So, Father, take charge over this press conference, from the presenters to the listeners, whether present or even online. So, God, we thank you for what you have done and for what you're about to do. And we thank you for allowing our leaders to lead this great nation. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Thomas. Please be seated. Allow me to introduce the head table. From my right, the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, National Security, Citizenship and Immigration, Health and Social Security, the Honorable Dr. Terrance Drew. Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Education, Youth, Social Development, Gender Affairs, Aging and Disabilities, the Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley. Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, the Honorable Garth Wilkin. Minister of Tourism, Labor, Civil Aviation, and Urban Development, the Honorable Marsha Henderson. Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources, Cooperatives, Entrepreneurship and Creative Economy, the Honorable Samuel Duggins. Junior Minister of Youth Empowerment and Social Development, Gender Affairs, Aging and Disabilities, the Honorable Iseline Phillip. The main thrust of today's press conference is to highlight the government's first 100 days in office. This government commits to leading with transparency and integrity and resolves to keep the nation abreast of the decision-making process and accomplishments thus far. I now invite the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Terrance Drew, to present his opening statement.
Good afternoon to all. Thank you very much. Let me say that once again, I'm elated to have this opportunity to stand before the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, those who we represent and those who are responsible for us being here. Let me recognize also the head table that is here with us, ministers in your federal cabinet, and I will say it in order as they are seated here: the Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, our Deputy Prime Minister; the Honorable Gad Wilkin, our AG; the Honorable Marsha Henderson, our Minister of Tourism, Ital; the Honorable Samuel Duggins, our Minister of Agriculture, Ital; and the Honorable Aislinn Phillip, who is our Junior Minister. I am grateful to be supported by a dynamic and capable team in the federal government. We all continue to work hard on our people's behalf, and we will not tire in doing good. In fact, 3 of our members, and I name them: the Senior Minister, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzil Douglas, Honorable Conway Maynard, and Senator Honorable Dr. Joy Clark, are presently participating in COP27 in Egypt, and so are not here today with us. However, we wish them well in their endeavors as they represent our country. There they are engaging in critical discussions and negotiations with the world's countries on actions that need to be taken to achieve the climate goals and mitigate the effects of climate change. Yesterday, November 14th, as was pointed out, marked 100 days in office for the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party-led administration. In my speech to commemorate this milestone, and I hope that the press would have had a chance to look at it, I highlighted that your government is off to a good start, but that is only a start, and that it is our next 1,700 days that we must focus on and continue to work towards making the lives of our people better. Therefore, we are not here to celebrate the first 100 days, but to press on and look forward to the future work of this your government. Given recent developments in the citizenship by investment industry and its importance to our economy, it is necessary to update you on the progress we have made in the past 100 days to strengthen our CBI program. For nearly 40 years, our Federation Citizenship by Investment Program has been the pioneer of the global investor immigration industry. The CBI program has allowed this nation to thrive beyond what could have been possible without it, what could not have been possible without it. It has at times given us the opportunity to advance our people without relying too much on international financial aid. While the CBI program has played a role in achieving successes, it has not come without scrutiny and criticism. The vision to use citizenship by investment to attract international investment was both bold and creative. But we must admit that over the years, the program has not been mutually beneficial for all stakeholders, especially our people, who should always be at the forefront of benefits from these programs. Your government has been committed to working tirelessly to strengthen and improve our CBI program for enhanced sustainability within a framework of integrity. While we have always been the benchmark of the citizenship by investment value proposition, we understand that in order to remain as one of the most sought after economic citizenship programs in the world, we need to evolve. We are not making these important decisions in isolation. We have been in discussion with relevant stakeholders in the sector. These stakeholders include local developers and international investors, as well as officials at the unit and those who have other interests. There will be much stronger oversight and leadership in the CBI unit. Your government is implementing strengthened legislative and administrative structures to ensure that real estate projects funded by the CBI program are completed. To this end, we are seeking trusted investors who see the potential of our nation to put capital behind creative and strong projects that will enhance our offering. Under new leadership, the CBI program will be administered in such a way that all stakeholders can have an equal opportunity to benefit and priority needs will be addressed. For example, we need housing for our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We were therefore purposeful in our engagements, and the newly evolved program must prosper each and every one of us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The changes we intend to make will ensure that we maintain a progressive and sustainable program whilst cementing St. Kitts and Nevis's place as a leader in the CBI industry. Your government understands that the financial plight of our people and continues our thrust to improve the lives of our people. As we navigate life after the pandemic, we continue to roll out our COVID-19 recovery plan initiatives. In this regard, and following consultations with the Ministry of Finance and others, the Cabinet has approved discounted VAT rate days on Friday, November 25th. In this initial one, vehicles will not be included, and Friday, December 16th, and Saturday, December 17th, which will include vehicles. Our first 100 days in office, your government has been methodical, prudent, and pragmatic in carrying out the mandate you have elected us to undertake. I am therefore pleased to announce that after careful deliberation, an extra payment of 1 month's salary, or what is termed double salary, will be paid on Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022. It just so happened that it is my birthday. So that means I can ask for a lot of drinks. To all civil servants, so paid to all civil servants and government auxiliary employees of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Nevis Island Administration, including pensioners and step workers. And we will monitor closely, and we're asking all statutory corporations to make similar payments to their employees as well. This injection of cash into the economy will have all those domino effects. Hence, after careful consideration, it was determined that the benefits to be derived from this action far outweigh any negative ones. And with that, I want to thank you, the press, and to our citizens who are listening. And I look forward to engaging you with your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Honorable Prime Minister. We will now open the floor for questions. Kindly note the following guidelines. All questions will be directed to the Prime Minister, who will then delegate to the relevant ministers to respond accordingly. When you approach the mic, kindly state your name and the media house you represent. Each journalist will be allowed to ask 2 questions at a time to allow for the smooth flow of the proceedings and give the members adequate time to respond. Let me also recognize those media houses on the virtual platform. Let me also recognize those media houses on the virtual platform. If you have a question, please use the raise your hand function, or you can type your question in the chat box and I will acknowledge and facilitate accordingly. At this point, we welcome our first journalist from in-house.
programs of the CBI initiative. Can you tell me exactly what is the situation there? Has the government been approving passports or citizenship for the prison project? And if so, how many, or has the project been shelved? What is the situation? Secondly, it seems that the government will end the fiscal year in a significant deficit, as projected by the International Monetary Fund, of which St. Kitts and Nevis, of course, is a member, with programs such as the Peace Initiative and several social support programs weighing heavily on the budgetary considerations in 2023. What is the plan to dig ourselves out of the deficit situation that year? Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Bat, for that question. I will start with the last one first, and that's the first one that you asked. With respect to the deficit, and I'm happy that you mentioned deficit because I think some clarification needs to be made with respect to this. This is not rocket science. I think this is not rocket science as far as understanding what a deficit is. Basically means if you spend out more than you take in, you will be in a deficit. Just think of it in simple terms. You might be working and making $100, but if initially you were just spending $80 of that $100, you have a surplus of $20. But if you now start to have a situation where you are spending more than you are making, you still have some money in your pocket, but obviously it's quickly recognized that you are running a deficit. That's what a deficit basically in layman terms is you are spending more than you are taking in, and that results in a deficit. That has nothing to do with your cash position, and that is what I want people to fully understand. So there are two different things. And so it is projected that we will run a deficit. We know that we have social programs that went into overdrive just before the election. It's as if somebody injected these programs with steroids. The peace program, we had about 600 people, went up to 1,300. Just that alone. We found people on the PAP who had triple names and false social security numbers, increasing dramatically the amount of money spent on that program, where people were triple dipping and quadruple dipping from that program alone. We found people who were on the 4 social programs. And so there was a lot of excess and abuse and corrupt practices around the social program. These are facts. And so we know that this hit the Treasury very hard. And that drove us partly to where we are today. We also recognize that when it came to any new industry, at that point in time, none had been developed. We recognize that there was a COVID situation. But even beyond that, I'm talking about the excess, the abuse, corruption. And we are putting a dossier of the corruption together. A dossier. It's already getting very thick. And so what we plan to do next year is we plan to have new investments and new industries developed. For example, first trip that I made was to Barbados with Afrexim Bank, African Import-Export Bank, which is now coming into vision. This is a bank that has been around for over 30-something years, and its total assets is about 32 billion US dollars. We're not talking about a small bank. We're talking about a large bank with significant amount of assets. And I want to report that yesterday in Cabinet, the Afrexim Bank came to meet with us, very high-level officials, to look at tangible investment opportunities here in the Caribbean, and specifically in St. Kitts and Nevis. Actually, their first stop was here in St. Kitts. And so we are looking at a number of projects together. Those projects that we are earmarking to come out, in that way we are seeking to stir economic activity and create new opportunities for investment and to create jobs as well. That is one of the thrusts. And so we continue to pursue that path. And a number of critical things were mentioned in that meeting. We talk about processing of fish farms, chicken, packaging, export. We talk about energy as a sector, which we'll talk about furthermore. And I wish the Honorable Congressman that was here to speak about task force on energy and creating energy as a sector and our goal to become exporters of energy. That is innovative. Probably we can get further into that. We already have with Development Bank, where we'll be injecting millions of dollars to provide loans for our small and medium-sized businesses to stir again economic activity. Because our hope and our plan and our goal is not to have everybody on social programs, but that people can really generate real economic activity, grow wealth, and will not have the need to come on social programs. That is what we want. We want to wind down those programs as much as possible, but of course, being responsible about it, making sure that people are moving into jobs, into small businesses where they can sustain themselves even better than being on the social programs. So I would say, Mr. Bad, these are just examples of where we are looking at stirring new investment and industry. Other way we're going to deal with it, is through construction. We are going to launch a housing program with our CBI program to stir the construction industry, put our men fundamentally who work in that area to work, and I hope to see some women in that field as well, because women should learn to run blocks too. I see some women running blocks and they're good at it. There's no difference. And so that will create a number of opportunities for our people. It will create home ownership, opportunities to build real wealth, and have collateral to approach a bank, which you can use to borrow to the businesses and your children to study, or however you see that you can use. And that we think we are going to start other major projects, such as our hospital. As I've said before, we had the first rendering of our new hospital to come, the first concept. We are looking at the Bastia High School as well. And so these construction opportunities will have multiplier effect in terms of creating jobs, advancing our people, stirring economic activity, creating wealth through land and home ownership and so forth. And so that is another area in which we will look to stir. So small businesses, construction, and looking for new investment and creating new areas and industry. We have also put forward in the cabinet, you might have seen the post-cabinet briefing of creating economic zones, because we know that we have lost a number of factories over the last few years. About 3 factories we might have lost at the industrial site. And the industrial site used to employ about 2,000 plus people. That's a significant number. Disproportionately, women are affected as a result of the closing of these factories. And once again, we have to create new opportunities for our people. We want our people to be trained in different areas. For example, the Minister of Tourism just met with the cruise lines, because now they will recruit our people to work on cruise lines. We have also sought to make connection between the hotels and the college, so that the college can actually become a source of employees for these hotels, but will be trained accordingly. So we are making that link between college and work. So we have multiple ways in which we will look at stirring the economy and responding to what we can expect maybe next year. Just in case there's a recession, we have a lot of other activities to continue to stir the economy here. So the other question with respect to the prison project, as you know, Mr. Bat, the prison project was a project that stirred a lot of discussion leading up to the last elections. People looked at the CBI program and looked at a specific area of the CBI program called the AIO, which really responded out. It's for public good. Whatever is being done is for public good. the persons involved would have dialogue with the government, and the government responded by saying that their priority area of development at that point was a prison. A prison. And I think most people in St. Kitts and Nevis disagreed with having a prison as a priority in that moment. Not that a prison is not important to have, but in terms of your priority list and seeing where we were under COVID or just coming out of COVID, the people had a different position with respect, and we accept that. The citizenship by investment program, and that is why I outlined exactly what we are doing. And we are coming really to conclude exactly where we will land. We are almost to the end of it. I'm really looking at a trip right now to go to the Middle East, because we understand with the CBI program, one has to be mindful that if you market a particular product, you just can't in the middle of it switch to anything else, because people lose confidence, and they can lose confidence in your CBI product as well. It is like you go to a bank and you say, look, I'm going to the bank and I want your money to build a house, and then you go on a cruise. So when you market your CBI program, you can't say this is for a public good where we'll build a prison that is needed because that is how it was marketed, because the government prioritized that. And then you go back now and say, look, we have to switch in the middle of that. All those persons who might have had interest would lose confidence in your CBI program and can damage the CBI program. So we want to continue to be persons who are responsible, a government that is responsible. And so we have looked at it very carefully. That is why we are coming up with the measures that were mentioned to implement them, to make sure that we strengthen the program so that something like this does not happen again. And that is why we have to make the trip as well to make sure. So the situation with that is that that program, we can't make a direct switch in it, even though we have discussed switching, because what we are going to do is launch the program now to build houses. Our houses would be our priority, while saying to the persons, we are not doing anything for you to lose confidence that when we say this, because our government is continuous, and if we say this, we just can't switch to that. However, we have shifted our priority to building houses. We know that there's some strengthening that has to be done, Mr. Bat, and we are doing that as well. So as far as that is concerned, because of how the CBI program is structured, we just cannot switch off a particular project that was marketed. However, we are making sure that we strengthen the program so that this does not happen again, irrespective of which government is there. And if there are issues of the program where we think that there might be abuses, we are strengthening the regulations to make sure that if there are any issues of abuses that people might be concerned about, that those are dealt with as well. And so we'll come out with a comprehensive approach after we would have dealt with all the stakeholders. We are looking at the regulations. We are coming down to the very end of it. I am planning a trip even to the Middle East as we speak to make sure that we can deal with it. But in terms of switching, that would damage the program significantly. But we'll prioritize going forward.
Thank you, Prime Minister. This question comes from Javis Brown from Vaughan Radio. Though it is commendable on the government's part to pay essential workers the honorarium, does the cabinet think others, like teachers, are deserving of the honorarium as well? Is there anything in the pipeline for teachers that worked throughout the pandemic?
Right. I think I want to applaud all those who worked throughout the pandemic. I think as many persons who could have worked, we worked. I remember hearing, having a talk with the persons at Freedom FM, and I said to the radio jockeys there, and I see Ike here, that they would have a fundamental role in dealing with the pandemic. So I know they worked as well. But the honorarium really addressed the frontline workers. They are essential workers, and you have the frontline workers. The frontline workers is a defined type of role where in your role, you are at risk of catching the COVID. That is the issue. You are at risk of catching the COVID. And it was not fair that some people got honorarium and those who were on the front line could not get. I remember even mentioning that when it came to the honorarium, that the honorarium should have been given. I said that even before it was leaked that honorarium was paid to a handful of persons, to the point where the former minister got $27,000. That $27,000 was more than the annual salary of some of the persons who were actually on the front line. And I thought that even though you can't pay people for that type of sacrifice, there must be something tangible to say thank you. So there was a differentiation, there is a differentiation between essential worker and frontline worker. And the frontline is where in carrying out your employment duties that you would have been exposed to the COVID, and hence you would have been risking your lives and the lives of your families. I think that needed a specific type of recognition, and that is where it was levied. But I want to thank the teacher for all the work that she would have done and all the other essential workers, but the distinction was frontline worker in this one.
Thank you. We'll now take another journalist from in-house.
Good afternoon, LaShawn Dixon. Thank you, Serious Observer. My question to the Prime Minister. You just mentioned that you're planning a trip to the Middle East to promote the CBI. Last time we had a count of how much CBI applications had been processed was in 2018. The question is, how many passports have been processed up until this date? And how many citizenship applications have you signed off on since in the first 100 days since taking office? And second question is, what is the general breakdown of nationalities who are willing to get citizenship, economic citizenship from St. Kitts and Nevis? And
Right.
is there a plan to put a cap on any nationality?
Is there a plan to?
Put a cap on
Right.
economic citizenship.
Right, so the questions you have asked are very good questions, and we'll have to get back to you on the numbers because they are very, very specific, and I don't want to not give you. All right, so we can always work on disclosing. The last time you had those numbers was when? 2018, you had those specific numbers? Right, and you didn't get any subsequently after that. Right, so we'll do that. Let me say on a number of things that you asked with respect to the numbers. Those are critical questions to ask, and we'll get back to you with respect to those numbers, and you can contact us as well to be specific. All right. What was it? So, right. Okay. All right.
Do we have another?
Good afternoon, all. Kevon Brown. COPS 27 ends this week, and loss and damage funding seems to be a topic of discussion for COP 27, and it's been reportedly lax, the loss and damage funding. So are we doing anything locally or regionally to secure our own loss and funding situation here in St. Kitts and Nevis? And additionally, about 3 weeks ago, work began on putting asphalt in the Old Road area, Old Road, New Road. And since then, there's been no work on it. It's been paused. So is there possible that we can get an update on what's going on there? When is the repair going to commence? Thank you.
I think the loss and damage, if the Honorable Joel Clark was here, she would answer it. But that is a very critical question, because when I went to the UN, if you listen to part of my UN speech, I spoke about the climate issue, and that we in the Caribbean, especially small island states, our footprint is very small when it comes to the carbon issue, and hence the increase in global temperature or global warming. And the global warming we know is responsible for a lot of climate issues. We see hurricanes more frequently, stronger in some areas, We see flooding, heat, droughts, to be specific. And we are seeing the melting of the ice caps. And this is really resulting in a lot of loss and damage. That's one. The issue is, for a while, that when it came to be placed on an agenda, there were interest groups or countries who worked to keep that off of out of the discussion. But at COP27, it made the agenda. So we recognize that that was an advancement. However, we still continue to struggle to secure that funding for loss and damage, because we are suffering loss and damage all the time because of the climate change. So a lot of work still needed. You might have heard me spoke about MVI, Multi-Vulnerability Index, which means you just cannot judge us on GDP alone to determine if we could have access to concessionary loans, which we don't have because we are considered a high-income country. Yet we are expected to deal with loss and damage. We are expected to convert our country, at least from an infrastructural standpoint, into a resilient country. And that is why you heard me, I would speak all the time about a sustainable island state. That costs money. Just to build a climate-smart hospital, going to cost us, new one, could cost us up to $100 million US. Climate smart means that we are building a hospital that will be able to resist the issues to deal with climate change. So if we were hit by a heavy hurricane, at least we should have a hospital that can stand up and treat our people. And that is just one infrastructural change. And therefore, we continue to stress the point about the MVI, loss and damage and so forth, and it made it to the agenda, which means that we can continue to press and move forward. What are we doing here? Excellent point. We want a sovereign wealth fund. And we intend to create a fund like that, so that in that fund we can deposit monies and do like what happened in the Bible. I think it was Joseph, if I have the person right, was down in Egypt. He saw 2 calves, or the king saw some calves, some fat and some thin. So the fat one is when you have store, and when the thin days come, you'll have from what you stored from when things were fat. So we want to create a fund where we can deposit something, so just in case we have a buffer. And we want to fence it around so that it is not used other than for emergency situations. And so that is one of the ways in which we want to secure that we can have some money put aside to deal with things like loss and damage in acute situations. More chronic situations, I guess, we can deal with them through the current budget and so forth. But that is a very good question. But we are advancing. There was a little bit of hope with respect to that. So we will see what comes of COP27.
Thank you, Prime Minister. This question comes from CBN.
Oh, the old road. Oh, sorry, the old road situation. The Minister of Infrastructure, Public Works is not here, the Honorable Congress Maynard, but I can say that they started to work on it to no cost of the government. Based on the information I had, it landed in the time of guarantee. And so he is pursuing that. And so he would have a more direct answer for that one. So you can always get the answer as a result. But that is the information that I had up to that point.
Okay, this question comes from the Caribbean Broadcast Network in the British and US Virgin Islands, CBN. The COVID-19 pandemic brought with it a high-definition perspective to what had previously become known as the virtual global village. That high-definition phenomenon has hit the private early child care and education sector like the proverbial ton of bricks and has rendered all of the private child care operations as virtually closed down. The vast majority of the private early child care centers have been unable to take care of their operating expenses since their mass closures, which commenced in March 2020 due to the huge loss and reduction in revenue and without structured incentives. What is your ministry's response to this dilemma as it relates to governments to provide a national package of support incentives across the board to ensure that the early child care centers can sustain themselves and also thrive in the post-COVID-19 environment?
I think that question is right for the Minister of Education.
Thank you very much for that question. Indeed, I am happy for it because it's just a few days ago I had the opportunity of meeting with all of our early childhood providers, both public and private. And we are somewhat blessed in St. Kitts in the fact that the government continues to invest in our children, and there is a subvention that is paid on behalf of each child that attends the various daycare. So that in itself, it's a tremendous assistance for the parent. Additionally, as the government, we are responsible for ensuring that we monitor all of our centers. And most recently, within the 100 days, we were able to approve for all of our resource teachers traveling allowance, which gives them a little bit more time in visiting more of the centers, making sure that they are still at the standard that they ought to be operating.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. We'll now turn our attention to the screen as we have our first virtual question from Raul Nelson. Mr. Nelson, we are unable to hear your question as there's no sound. Okay, until we rectify that, can we get another question from the floor, please?
Good afternoon, Ralston Rankin, Sugar City FM. Question, a while back you spoke on revamping the PAP program. Has that process started? And if so, can you give a timeline as to when that might happen? Due to the fact persons are asking when they can register for the program, and for the persons who might not fit the requirement for the program after you revamp the program, in the future, if they do meet the requirement, can they re-register for the program? Secondly, the St. Peter's bus line is in desperate need of a proper facility. Presently, there is no bathroom or shade whatsoever. So can you speak a little bit on if you have any plans whatsoever to deal with that situation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll pass on that question to the Minister of Social Services.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As the Prime Minister indicated, there are a number of irregularities that we picked up in the PAP program, and as a result, we are revamping and restarting with improvement. I must say that persons who might be saying that they have not received their PAP payment could have only happened under two circumstances. One, when we check or did cross-reference of the database, they are over the threshold of 3,000. And then 2, when we checked with Social Security and did our cross-reference with Social Security numbers, we recognized that there were a number of applicants who had whether fake Social Security numbers or numbers that don't match with the Social Security. So as a result, we put a stop on the payment until the persons were able to show their correct Social Security. So the payments still continue, and even as we are getting ready as early as next week to start the re-registration, payments will continue. We are just making sure that we have an accurate database, and I want at this time to thank all of the workers at the social services in St. Kitts and also Nevis, because we have been collaborating for this project. And what you will find happening next week, I will make a national address to the Federation indicating the steps as to how we are going to go about going forward with this new initiative of the PAP. The IT department also must be commended, because my colleagues will tell you that we were already eager to move with it, but because of the technology, we thought that we should modernize it so there are persons who would be able to apply online and everything is already there. You get your pre-approved notification, and then we continue with the process. So we are cleaning it up. Right now, 7,391 persons are on the PAP, including persons who run businesses.
Thank you for your response. This next question, 1 second.
Right, good. So the St. Peter's bus stop is an area that needs work. I already begin to engage how we can do it. A number of proposals, suggestions have come forward, including where the Carnival Village is, as you build a performing arts center. Why not create one large central bus station where everybody come, East Line, West Line, St. Peter's, develop like that. And so we have been inquiring and already studying how we'll go about doing it. So we're still in that process, but I want to say to the people of St. Peter's, where I'm from, that to have a bus stop where there is no bathroom facility and so forth is unacceptable. And I'll continue to work and push to make sure that that comes to an end. And so that's a very good question, and I've already started to look into that. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to update the people on that issue.
Thank you. This next question comes from Freedom FM. Is there anything in place for those persons who were sent home for not taking the vaccine from the port? Would they be rehired?
Well, I would say, with respect to that question, we have the Minister of Labor here.
Thank you, Mr. PM. I am sure the Prime Minister was just going to indicate that we have already made arrangements for persons, inclusive of those who worked at SCASPA and who did not take the vaccine, to attend the Ministry of Labor, the PM, and we've worked out a gratuitous payment. So that was, I think we had some press release around that about a month ago, and persons have already went in, were processed, and received the requisite compensation. So whether you're from the port or any other institution, most of them came from a particular institution, which I won't mention here, but most of them would have gone in, made their complaints at the Department of Labor, as well as the union, the trades union, and the government made arrangements for those persons to be paid a payment. So I'm not sure if that persons were unaware, but we have made arrangements already as a government.
And the part about rehiring, I think part of the question when we spoke about it is something called restorative justice. You can't move on unless you really deal with these issues. Persons made mistakes during the COVID. As we know, there was a district judge in New York who actually ordered businesses to rehire people and pay them their back pay because their rights were violated. We recognized that early. I started to speak about that very early. That it is easy to take away people's rights when there are crises, but it is the strength of any country and nation that can withstand those tests that really demonstrate how strong they are. I recognize that some issues were made, and therefore the restorative justice is a matter that has to be dealt with and was dealt with.
And of course, in terms of rehiring, I met with management on Friday at SCASPA, because I know the question was specific to SCASPA. And I was informed prior to the elections that we had hired an additional 64 persons there. So those things have to be considered before we even look to the decision of rehiring. So I was only informed of that on Friday, an additional 64 persons. So, of course, the board and this new CEO going to be looking into rehiring, but those things, of course, would have to be considered.
Thank you, Minister. Before we take another question in-house, we'll go back. Sorry.
Forgive me, Madam Moderator. I just wanted to take the opportunity as well to, I did make reference to the new CEO. It's been announced that we have a new CEO at the GASPA, and today we announced the appointment of Adiola Moore. So just for first female CEO at GASPA. Right, Austin?
Thank you. Before we take another question from in-house, we'll go back to the virtual platform to Mr. Nelson.
All right, good afternoon. Ron Nelson, SKN News Source. Prime Minister, congratulations to you and your team. I see you started off on a flying race start. But what I wanted to ask is, are there any signature projects that you'll be working on within your first term in office? I know that for your first 3 months, you have achieved significantly. And more so, you seem to be passionate on a number of issues. What issue do you think you would want to, when your first term is finished in office, that you can look back and say this was your signature project for your first term in office? My second question comes in two parts. One, in the sense where St. Kitts and Nevis is one of 4 Caribbean countries where the telecommunications sector is controlled significantly by the government in terms of the cable company where the government has majority share. Recently, you have named a very impressive board for the cable. Looking at the performance of the cable thus far, are you satisfied with the performance? And secondly, what do you foresee? What can the public expect from the cable in terms of being controlled, ownership primarily by the government? And thirdly, well, my second part of my second question relates to, I know lawyer Sylvester has been playing a major role in your office. Can you say if there's an official portfolio for him, or if not? Basically, those are my 3 questions that I really would like to get answers to.
Right, thank you very much. I would like to, I think you mentioned one about the cable and the situation with the cable. I don't know if the AG can speak towards the laws surrounding that and possibly some plans that we will have. But while he prepares to deal with that, I will say after my first term, I want there to be universal health care. One, meaning health insurance, good health facilities, and these are accessible and affordable for our people. I want there also to be a sustainable island state where renewable energy become a major part of our energy source. The other factor I want to look at is the issue of good governance. And we have been pursuing that, where really we try to deal with a lot of the irregularities in our system. That is critical and important as well. When it comes to education, that our people have access to education from preschool all the way up to the tertiary level. And I think if we are able to give people education, health, and a good governed system where they can be innovative, I think that would set the stage for creating the St. Kitts and Nevis that our forefathers dreamed of. And therefore, I would say that those are the things, if you ask me personally, that I would like to see after our first term. Good health, good education, good governance, and of course, where people are given the opportunity to be innovative, to grow well. Thank you very much.
In relation to the cable is a private company. The government owns majority of the shares. So I have already had discussions with the minister with responsibility for the cable, the Honorable Congress Maynard, about whether it is proper for the government as the regulator of telecommunications also to have a horse in the race. That is a conflict that we are currently discussing from a legal perspective to determine whether the government really should divest its shares so that it can avoid any such conflict as being the regulator who determines the rules as well as the player who is subject to the rules. So that is a matter that we are openly discussing, and I hope now that the board has been put in place, I believe it was last week the board was elected, now that we can have that discussion with the leadership of the company and determine from a governmental policy perspective whether we want to continue with that potential conflict or not.
Thank you for your responses. We'll now go to anything else? Oh, yes.
Right.
My question about Lawyer Sylvester, it wasn't answered.
Yes.
Right. His role in government will, as it completes, will be shortly announced, as I don't make announcements until things are completely done. But I would say he has been a significant source of experience. His legal knowledge has helped tremendously in really traversing some difficult waters. And so if you see that the government is functioning fairly smoothly and avoiding legal pitfalls and significant stumbles, he has been significant in that as well. And so I want to thank him for the guidance that he has been giving thus far. He has been contributing his time, his energy, and his experience, especially in the area of the law. And he would assume at some point a official role to be announced, but once that is completed, that will be done. So thank you very much as well.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now go to an in-house journalist.
Good afternoon, Jason Davis from ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. Mr. Prime Minister, recently you made a comment regarding pursuing Bitcoin Cash to become a legal tender in the Federation. Could you clarify the rationale behind pursuing Bitcoin Cash?
Right. I think, thank you very much. Oh, you have another one?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That was one question. Yes. Question number 2, are there plans to continue to pursue the two-term legislation?
Right. Thank you very much. I'll answer the last one first. And I think the AG might have some input on this. But I'm telling you from my perspective, I am not staying, and I keep saying it even to people close to me, more than 2 terms. I think I have read history long enough, and I understand from my own perspective, because you're asking me personally. And one of the stories that I read that was very significant was George Washington. And when I compared that to what happened in the Haitian Revolution, for example, after George Washington would have been the leader for the American Revolution, he was not a perfect man. They encouraged George Washington to almost take a position like a king to reflect that of England. And he said no. After exactly 2 terms, he packed up his wagon and he went to his private farm. And there they would consult him if they needed to consult him. Because of that act, and he was courageous enough to reject the lures of power, but thought greater with respect to the republic and to position it and to fulfill the goals that they had fought for and many had died for. I think that is an example. And for me, that is a personal example for me. I don't think people should stay in power too long. That is my personal position. So I'm not going to do it. And I will encourage others not to do it. They can probably come, go, maybe I don't know how they want to do it, but I don't think that it serves. That is my personal position. People might have a difference of opinion, but I think I have a right to put my personal opinion. And I keep saying it, you know why? Because if at any time I start to get these wise ideas that I should stay more than 2 terms, I want people to be able to play back this tape to remind me that I said 2 terms only. And it's deliberate. It's deliberate why I keep saying it. And so if I can pursue the legislation, I will pursue it from my perspective, but I will give you my personal position on it, right? And well, the AG can speak to his legislative agenda, and I think it would be something that will be discussed further, but that is my position on it.
This government is not going to approach serious matters of governance and the Constitution in a haphazard way. Our history has been spoiled by constitutional provisions and legal provisions directed at particular people. Our Constitution is actually famous in the region for having provisions to keep people out of Parliament. And we're no longer going to proceed in that type of way. That is why the Cabinet has instructed me to start to look at wholesome constitutional reform. And that is why we formed a joint constitutional review committee with the legal department and the NIA. We are going to sit down around a table and we're going to look at the flaws in our constitutional system, our constitutional document, and we're going to craft a document that suits the purposes of all the people in our federation. We're going to fix the issues surrounding the NIA and the federal government. We're going to address the term limits. We're going to deal with all sorts of matters that are in our Constitution in a holistic, mature way, in a democratic way. We're going to consult with the people. We're going to consider whether we should have a fixed election date so we don't have premature callings of elections like similar other islands are doing right now. We're going to have those discussions with the people. It's not going to just be the people in the room making that decision. Everybody is going to have a chance to come to a forum like this and provide their input. We're going to look at what people are saying, look at what people are calling for, and we're going to craft a modern, realistic, fair, equitable constitution that all of us can be proud of and is not targeting any particular individuals because of political expediency. That is the mature, professional way to do this, and that is how we're going to do it. So my simple answer to you, Jason, is that is going to be part of the process. This foolishness of doing things one by one without looking at the bigger picture has ended. We're going to do it from a holistic way, and we're going to address all of these matters. And you already know what the Prime Minister's stance on terms is. There might be persons with other opinions. It is not just the Prime Minister's opinion that's going to matter. That's why he said it's his personal opinion. We're going to take the opinions of all the stakeholders, the people of our country, and craft a good constitution that we are proud of.
Thank you. Prime Minister, I think you still have the question about Bitcoin Cash.
Right. So I think you would have read my whole statement. And I did say before the elections that our government will be, our administration will be innovative and look at new frontiers and new ways of doing things. But I think that I punctuated my statement very clearly that due diligence is critical and important. We will consult our banking system as well. We will make sure that our people are never put at unnecessary risk. So there are a series of critical conditions that must be met before we take that. I will tell you further that I had discussion further afield where I'm supposed to receive reports. I have a task force that is made up of our advisor, who is Mr. Calvin Edwards from the United States. We'll advertise him, who has put a team together to study this. So this is basically very conditional and a number of critical things before we can move forward. But I want people to know that this will be an innovative government, a bold government, but we would be a prudent and mindful government as well.
Okay, we'll take our last question from in-house before we wrap up.
All right, Kevon Brown, WinFM again. What has been the feedback so far for the drafts that were recently sent out, the Integrity in Public Life and anti-corruption bill? What has been the feedback so far from the private sector and the NGO?
I sent out the drafts, I want to say 2 Mondays ago. I have not received any responses. I spoke to Sniper earlier today. They said they're actually having a debate about the changes, the proposed changes to the Integrity in Public Life Amendment Act. The Bar Association has confirmed that they're having a virtual consultation with the members of the bar, I think on the 17th. That's this week. I've sent it also to members of the opposition in Parliament. I haven't gotten any response from them yet. I sent it as well to the Chamber. I presume the Chamber will also sit down and provide their input. I've sent it to the Christian Council. I actually had made a promise, so I'm happy you asked that question. I've made a promise to send it to the Labor Union, which I will do tomorrow probably. So the easy answer is I have gotten no responses yet. I've been on the radio. I went on WinFM last week. I also went on Freedom last week, and I spoke about the legislation and what it proposes. I've received a couple emails, but they were very general in scope. I received a couple WhatsApps with persons requesting to get the legislation, and that is my hope. My hope is that as many people as possible will contact the office, attorneygeneral@gov.kn, and ask for a copy of the legislation. It's posted on the SKNIS website. All you have to do is Google SKNIS anti-corruption syndicate, and you'll find the documents. Provide your input so that it can guide the process of presenting a final draft to the Parliament for debate and decision.
Thank you, AG. I know I said we have the last question from in-house. Now we'll have the last question from the virtual platform.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can the moderator say if you can hear me? Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Okay, good. Yes. Good afternoon. Buckingham Media. First, let me congratulate the Sinkers Labour Party for their first 100 days in office, and it's after a good start. And to thank the Prime Minister for the double salary, and also to say happy birthday when it comes. What a wonderful birthday gift. Let's get right to it. Number one, what provision or law will be put in place Anyone cannot be a promoter. Anyone can be a promoter. So we wonder if anything will be in place to stop that. And also during a function, you will find that the security is somewhat lacking. And sadly, we have incident where a person have lost their life. Number two, why is it residents who are employed by the government for over 5 years or more not afforded the opportunity for scholarship or grants to further their studies? I'm not sure if you get the first question properly. I get interrupted, but I was asking what provision or law will be in place for the creative economy to function properly and fairly. Because anyone now, it appears, can be a promoter, and you'll find that some of the function are not started properly, and this causing a bit of chaos. Thank you very much. This is Bucket Media.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Right. Right. So I think that is a question. The Honorable Samuel Duggins, who is the Minister of the Creative Economy, can speak.
Pleasant afternoon to all. Now, if I understand the question clearly, it is asking about the functionality of the creative economy and what will be done to ensure that it operates in the way it's supposed to. Now, that starts for us with finalizing our cultural policy. It is something that has been bantered around for quite some time and has never really come to any conclusive position. And for us, we have been working diligently on finalizing that. However, while that is a document that will outline and manage the protection and the promotion of our creative and cultural assets, we do have our own way in which we see our creative industry and the entire economy, how we wish to see it operate and progress. So part of what we are doing as well is structuring. Just the idea of bringing all the elements under umbrella called the creative economy helps with that. And I had a meeting with the staff just this afternoon where we were discussing that, because prior to now, entertainment as a department was moving in one direction, culture moving in another direction, both doing the same things. So what we have done now is brought both of them together so that they could all match in one direction together. And that has eased and has also solved some of those complications. And we do intend to continue that type of streamlining so that we could have one systematic, seamless approach to development. And we are doing that not just in the creative economy. We are now finishing up our sports policy as well. Again, doing the same thing. We have done that in the area of small business, in creating a ministry, because you had SBDC in one ministry which resided in trade, doing part of the development work for small businesses. And then you had a ministry of entrepreneurship, which formed part of the Moen branded ministry. Again, you had clashes. The one is doing one thing, the other is doing their own thing, and no synergy. We have now brought that together and created some synergy. And I am pleased to say, on our journey here during the campaign, we have promised a number of things. We committed ourselves to doing a number of things for small business people. And today, we are now in a position where I could say, we are prepared now to offer duty-free and tools of trade to approved small businesses, something that we have committed to. We have just put together a program in conjunction with the Development Bank, where we have some financial resources that will be available in a matter of days for the development of small businesses through soft loan. And so some of these things that we have committed to, we are standing committed in delivering on that in our 100-day mark. Again, and I hope I've answered the creative economy part, but I just want to show that it is not just focused on one area. Like our Honorable AG has said, we are not taking this piecemeal approach. It's a holistic approach. And in the area of agriculture, there was a commitment that within 6 months, we will bring forward a development plan for agriculture. I am happy to say here now, in 100 days, we've completed the transformation and growth policy for the next 10 years for agriculture. And this is what it means. We are here working on structuring the future and delivering on what we have committed to. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Probably, if I can just address the concern of the scholarship is one to just to notify my good friend Bucky that we are just in government for 100 days and one. But as it relates to scholarship, this is something that we campaign on, indicating that we are going to do all that we can to ensure that our people in the Federation get these opportunities. I must say that from my experience, having served for 28 years in government, it was under the Labor administration where the scholarships gate were open up, if I should put it that way. We have right here, as the Honorable Marsha is indicating, she got that opportunity. We open up the Cuban scholarship. So we are a government who have always been looking out for our people. And I'm looking at His Excellency Kenny Douglas there in the crowd, a beneficiary of the Cuba scholarship as well. And earlier this afternoon, while we had our youth forum with the ministers, the Prime Minister was able to announce to the young people, the 130-something plus young persons here, with Samal and Minister Philip present, that Germany has answered to our call or cry for scholarship. So we now have Germany on our list of scholarship. I must also remind Bucky that majority of the time, once you would have served 5 years in government, you become a priority in getting that opportunity to go to study. I must also say that there are a number of scholarship opportunities that were sitting there that persons did not take advantage of. And since assuming the role of the Minister of Education, we have put a scholarship desk within the Ministry of Education so that every scholarship that comes through this country, whether through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or through HR, the Ministry of Education would have that, and we would also make sure that we get people to apply for these scholarships. As the Minister of Education, there is nowhere next year Morocco who gave us 10 scholarships, and we only choose 3. And then one of my colleagues from St. Lucia is telling me 35 St. Lucians went to Morocco. We are going to make sure that wherever we get these scholarships, we are going to identify the persons to fit them, because we need our own speech therapists to assist our children with autism, our occupational therapists. So our people must now get in that mindset that they must go out, study, come back, and invest in our people.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. As we wrap up, I'll turn now over to the Prime Minister.
Right. Before we totally wrap up, I would like Minister Eisley, who had an excellent forum here today of young people, to give an update on that and what she would have been doing. She brought her first bill to the House that dealt with a significant, important issue, issue of domestic violence.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. So I'll take the opportunity to give an update. So just earlier today, as part of our Youth Month activities, this month of November, we did have a Ministers' Forum, which the Deputy Prime Minister would have referenced in his comments. And that youth forum was an opportunity for us to engage with the young people. It was actually very well attended and it went very well. It was well facilitated by myself and coordinated and organized by all of the youth officers in the youth department. So we had the entire youth department here. And so the session was a facilitated session where I asked questions to the young people who were here to kind of get a sense of what empowerment means to them, what they're looking for, how COVID-19 would have impacted them. And we got some very clear, very complex, very well thought out and maturely thought out questions and answers in relation to the impact of the pandemic and what a COVID-19 pandemic recovery would look like. And I'm happy to have had Minister Duggins and Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister here to also receive some of those questions and respond to questions from the young people. I believe this was one of the first forums where we had so many ministers showing, and it's a demonstration of the commitment that this administration has to young people and youth empowerment. And so I'm very pleased with how the session went, and it was a reiteration and opportunity for me to reiterate and reassure the young people that their voice is valuable and that we do want to hear from them and what their concerns are, because the youth department has a mission on becoming the centralized point for issues for young people, and the plan and vision for the upcoming years to make sure that we can facilitate and support them in all of the various ways that they need, particularly when it comes to employment and opportunities for volunteerism and skill development, and even just providing resources for them to develop their own initiatives. So that was our Ministers Forum, and just a note for everyone, you can look forward to some additional activities. I believe this Friday we are having a bake-off, and that's between juniors and seniors, so that will be young people versus our seniors, and so we are trying to make sure we have that transgenerational connection with our activities as well. So I encourage you to support and check out our youth department page on various social media platforms. Did you want me to speak specifically to the domestic violence legislation? Okay. So yes, one of the first bills that would have been passed, that I would have passed in the House, was the domestic violence legislation, and that is something that was promised as something that would be done in the 100 days under the campaign platform for the SKNLP. I'm really pleased to say that we have passed those amendments, and essentially amendments would have made access to justice in terms of making it shifting, allowing the magistrates courts to be able to, allowing individuals to access the magistrates court to be able to get protection orders, which makes it a lot easier and more affordable for individuals, victims who would have had experiences of domestic violence. And it would have also just made the process for administering justice and providing resources to victims more accessible. And so that is a significant win because it actually allows for more practical administration and its immediate effects just in terms of for the legislative, for individuals to be able to administer themselves or to be able to gain resources. And so this is just these are just the first few amendments in terms of where we want to go when it comes to shifting the culture of domestic violence and combating the issues when it comes to gender-based violence on a whole. And I want to thank the AG for prioritizing it on the legislative agenda because it was promised and, promise made, promise kept. And so I want to say thank you for that.
All right, before we wrap up, I would like the Honorable Marsha Henderson to give an update on tourism. She has done too much not to update the country today.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. So I want to announce that for this season, we are going to have 13 inaugural calls. That means 13 calls from ships that would have never berthed here. So I think that is a big achievement. It shows that we're working. When we take our trips, we can sit here and expect business to come to us. So it is absolutely necessary for us to go out there and find the business. We can sit in our small corner of this world and expect business to come to us. So we've been working in the ministry and we've been able to get the calls to the destination. In fact, we're having the biggest ship in the world calling here on the 24th of November. That's from Royal Caribbean, and that would bring a significant amount of passengers to our shores, which means spend as well. Once the passengers come off and spend, it means money. Today, I got word that our destination was awarded another award, and we've been awarded the best hiking destination by the Caribbean Journal Caribbean Travel's Choice Award. And so we're working, we are promoting the destination. We continue at the ministry and at the authority, the hardworking staff. We continue to promote our destination so that we can get back to pre-pandemic figures. We were able to get Royal Caribbean to come here for Tourism Month. And as the Prime Minister said earlier, they have given a commitment to work with our students at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College on recruitment once they are successful at the end of their studies. Today, we had an inaugural call from a 5-star luxury vessel, Ocean Explorer, it's a small ship catering to more senior passengers who we hope spend more money, of course. Because of its the type of passenger the ship carries, it carries a smaller number. Today we had 111 passengers on that ship. We had another ship in port, which is from the Carnival fleet. So the taxi operators, the tour operators, I don't think we can complain just for this month alone. And so we continue to make strides in the tourism industry. Our stakeholders and our partners are certainly happy. Oh, yes, and now we can turn left, but that's another story. Just so that we can turn left, the Honorable Attorney General is reminding me that one of the things we were able to do for the tour operators and taxi operators is get an assessment done on the traffic flowing into Bastia out of Port Zante. To flow east, to flow west. You see, the Deputy Prime Minister is leading me wrong. Yes. Well, to turn into town from Port Zante. From Port Zante east. Very well. Not down by Rams. Y'all know what I mean. Not from Sands. which of course results in our visitors being able to have the scenic view into Bastia. And so we've worked hard with our partners, with the police and with Public Works, and we are doing an assessment of the traffic for a trial period so that we can, at the end of the month, make an informed decision as to the flow of traffic. So we want to thank our partners for working with us on that initiative as well.
All right, I want to thank of course, all the ministers for their updates. I also want to thank the media for the presence here today. I want to thank our Masters of Ceremony for ably really conducting this press conference, and to thank those who are at the operating table and the social media platforms and so forth that were presented here today. What this has really shown, and if each minister can speak here for more than an hour, outlining what they would have done in 100 days. And it demonstrates that we are working. I want to say to the country that when you see us take trips, it is because we are working. My first trip was with Afrexim Bank. Today, we had the international relations of the whole bank, which is a $32 billion bank in a sense, a major bank, visiting here. That's from the trip. I had to travel to Taiwan, which is a major trip, state visit, which was sponsored by Taiwan, did not cost our government $1. I further had to travel to the UN, critical trip to lay before the world exactly where St. Kitts and Nevis is heading. And then I traveled for the 72nd OECS Authority meeting, my first meeting. And so I want to put that in perspective so that people understand that these trips are completely connected to what we have to do. And so this talk around trips, this is what these trips have resulted in. As a matter of fact, I wanted the Minister of Tourism to speak because she made a significant trip. And on that trip, they told her that they were very thankful that we opened up the country, which has led to all these calls. And they said it yesterday as well. I mean, so we are on the job, delivering for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We are very prudent and we are very serious about the opportunity we have been given to serve the people, not to be in power, to serve the people. There's a stark difference. And so we are serving the people. And so I'm very proud of the team that we have. I'm very proud of each of them. They are delivering. Somebody said to me today, Dr. G, you're making this thing look easy. It's not that. It's because I have a team. So when I go to sleep, I know the team is performing well. That is why leadership can't be about one man or one woman or one person. It has to be collective leadership. And that is what this is definitely demonstrating. And after the 100th day, I want to say thanks to all of them for the hard work that they have been doing, and that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis can know for sure that they are working hard. I have already put the speech out with all of our major accomplishments. No need to go over them. And somebody reminded me, well, they said, Dr. Drew, remember this is a marathon, not a sprint. But I also wanted to say to them that we have to lay the proper foundation for what is to take place when we lay out the progressive agenda. I'm sure Austin would agree with that. And so we are working to establish that foundation so that when we continue to roll out, you'll recognize very quickly how competent this team is and how serious we are about serving our people and converting St. Kitts into the first sustainable island state. Thank you very much. And thanks to the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for your closing remarks. Thanks to Cabinet Ministers, and thank you to the media for your questions and for your cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
the story of a land, of the people who lived on it in the year 1870, and of a man whose name was Cochise. He was an Indian, leader of the Chiricahua Apache tribe. I was involved in the story, and what I have to tell happened exactly as you'll see it. The only change will be that when the Apaches speak, they will speak in our language. What took place is part of the history of Arizona. And it began for me here, where you see me riding. Since getting out of the Union Army, I'd been prospecting for gold off and on. And one day I got a message that a new colonel had come to Tucson and wanted to see me. The story started when I saw some buzzards circling in the sky. Buzzard's a smart bird. Something or somebody was getting ready to die. I figured it was a hurt deer or rabbit or snake. Not a rabbit, not a deer. His kind was more dangerous than a snake. He was an Apache. For 10 years, we'd been on a savage war with his people, a bloody, no-give, no-take war.